food addiction and diabetes. Now, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist or an expert. The only thing I'm an expert in is my own diabetes, which I have reversed. Before making any changes you hear on this podcast or any other podcast or anything, please consult your medical team. Now, I'm not alone today. I have my buddy Chad on with me right now. How you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Chad is a recovering alcoholic, a sober coach. His website is soberchad.com, and he also has an awesome podcast called Not All There, which I will tell you is really, really good. It's very heavy. It's very real. It's very raw. Uh-huh. If you ever want to hear two people really laying it out there, because you do a lot of guest interviews, tons of guest interviews. I just got done while I was working out today, Down and Out in LA with James.
James,
very good podcast.
Yep. From Atascadero, the central coast of California. Surfers Paradise.
He's been through some stuff, and he's on the other side of it, looking back and wanting to give back, which is awesome. Now, full disclosure, Chad is one of my best friends. We took a 20-year break, which is really weird.
It is really weird.
And then when we just got back together, last year.
Yeah. November.
And it felt like it'd been about 3 weeks since we were hanging out in Salt Lake City, going to the bowling alley because it was 25 cents a game, drinking all their coffee and smoking cigarettes. So anyway.
I forgot all about that, man. Jesus. Yeah, that's right. We did. We did 25 cents a game. Well, that's also, in Salt Lake at the time, a pack of cigarettes was like $1.99. A gallon of gas was 99 cents.
Yep.
It took a lot of that 3-2 beer though to get the job done. Thankfully,
it did. We found it.
A lot of Coors.
We did. Beer. And we were like 19. I was 19. You were 18.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we were young. That was my low point. And then I took 20 years off. Chad went through his low point.
No, I was just getting going. I was actually, I was out about running errands and meeting with people the day before I got on. And I was like, well, I wonder what we're going to talk about today, because there's just so much we could cover. And then I thought, you know what? It's interesting because I was straight as an arrow when I met you. Yeah. And
I was not.
You were not. And within... I don't know, 48 hours of meeting you, I had become an alcoholic. But if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So if you look at it like, well, if I hadn't have met him, I wouldn't have become an alcoholic.
I would like zero credit on that one. Please.
Take the praise, take the blue ribbon, man.
Jeez. Well, yeah, you caught up with me at the wrong time, man. If we'd have waited just like 5 years, we would have been much better off.
Oh, Christ, we probably would have gone on a mission together.
Yeah, I was fun. I will say that. It wasn't fun looking back on it, but we did have some fun times. But you're recovering alcoholic, and you are a sober coach. And so when we were talking in November, just hanging out on my patio, which I just opened the patio back up, by the way. So come on back down. We're ready to roll. I have an awesome back deck. My back deck is amazing.
It's sweet. Yeah.
And
you have wildlife that like to hang out.
Well, now I got 2 dogs. I don't think we're going to have as much wildlife this year. That's a hope anyway. But, we were talking about, my diabetic journey, and you were talking about your addiction. And then we just had a conversation a couple of weeks ago talking about podcasting and things like that. And again, it came up and I was like, we probably need to do a podcast about addiction and diabetes because they run together so closely. Food addiction is a real thing. And my hope is, you've gone through a lot of recovery. You are a sober coach. You deal with addicts all the time. And hopefully we can learn something as diabetics that will help us out from what you have learned through alcohol and drug addiction. So the first question is the hardest one. I promise you. And remember, this is a 16-hour podcast. No, I keep it.
I'm ready. I got a bucket under my desk. I'm good to go, man.
All right. So what is addiction?
Oh man, here we go.
You think
that's the big one. That's, that is, that's what people are trying to figure out. What exactly is addiction? And scientifically, man, what it is whatever the action is that you're doing, whether you're, putting a substance in your body like alcohol or drugs or food, it triggers something in your mind that it fires the endorphins, right? So you get that sensation of pleasure from whatever it is that you're eating. Now, some people, and I happen to be one that believes this, is that you are sort of genetically predisposed to certain types of addictions, right? And I am, I categorize myself as an alcoholic / drug addict, but I have food problems, still do, man, because I have that addiction to the endorphin, the rush, the comfort that I get from putting that in my body. And it's not what I put in my body that gives me that. It's the act, it's the impulse, it's the going through the process of completing that impulse and ingesting it that gives me that, right? I still get the guilt. I'll sit down and like whack back a sleeve of Oreo cookies or saltines, right? I'm like, it's great. And then, 5 minutes later, I'm like, my life, what did I just do? Right.
2 is good. 20 is better.
Oh yeah, man. Come on. Right. Why buy a 6-pack when you can get the case? Anyway. So addiction is really, the scientific part of it is it's a habit. You create habits. These habits form, and through these habits, you feed these impulses that you have that give you the endorphin rush. What happens along the way is that, at least as far as your brain is concerned, is that, for me and alcohol and drugs were damaged parts of my brain, right? So it took more and more and more to even remotely touch the endorphin rush that I was looking for, right? So the addiction and the impulses increased with lesser, with lesser results, greatly diminished results. And then I became, a dick. And, there's like, hangry, right? You don't get your food and you get angry. Well, like, take away my ice cream, take away that sleeve of Oreo cookies or that sleeve of saltines, and I'm a right bastard. Mm-hmm. And, that is something that I have to be aware of it and work on the daily. So for me, that's what addiction is. Does that answer your question?
No, better than I could. I was a bad addict. Like I'm good at quitting stuff. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm really good at quitting stuff. I wish it would.
I don't think you would call yourself a bad addict. You're just. I
know what you mean. So
a little different.
So I get a little bit obsessive though. So what's the difference between obsession and addiction? Because
not much.
Okay. Because some people, it's like okay to be obsessed with your health, right? But can you be addicted to your health? I mean,
yes,
they got to run right with each other,
no,
right?
They do. Yeah. I mean, there are people that are absolutely addicted to going to the gym and addicted to their image and addicted to they're addicted to the way they look, the way they feel, what they get at being at the gym, what they get at people looking at them at the gym. Like, if you want to call a person like a gym rat or a workout freak, they're nothing more than a workaholic, right? There is something that they are masking inside that the working out or the workaholic or the pizza or the sex or the gambling or the toxic relationship or doom scrolling, it's all masking something. Right? There's something that you're trying to cover up that you don't like the way you feel and you don't know why, right? Maybe you do. Maybe there was a very obvious and blatant trauma that happened in your life that you can't deal with. You don't know how to deal with it. You don't want to deal with it. So therefore you can't deal with it. So you mask it. And a lot of people will mask that through food. And obviously, I don't have to tell you, but these habits of masking these emotions, right, through food can lead to drastic and dangerous results. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease, on and on and on and on and on, right?
Sure.
And so people can be addicted to just about everything.
Well, I always wondered, like someone who's an actual, hey, I'm an addict at something, right? If you say, well, I'm addicted to shopping, if that's offensive, it's like, hey, you didn't earn that. You're not shooting up. You're just going and buying. I always kind of wondered that because I never considered myself an addicted to anything except for, nicotine and probably alcohol. I don't know. I quit like pretty easily to be a true
you were
addict.
Addicted to the behavior behind it, to the process, if you will. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's addictive properties to substances that chemically your body adjusts to and then begins to crave. Right. But also you get addicted to certain activities, right? Like I can't, whatever it might be, people can't sit still. It is obsessive, right? It's like, I'm not going to go as far as to say it's like obsessive compulsive disorder. That's an entirely different thing. I'm not a doctor, by the way, people, at all. I'm just a guy that is nuts, that has been sober for 10 and a half years. And I took a deep dive into my behaviors and my past traumas. And I have discovered a lot of things and learned a lot of things. And this is all my experience. Disclaimer. That said,
I like throwing in disclaimers. Someone said that to me. All your podcasts is all the disclaimers. I'm like, I don't want to get sued. I don't want anyone going, hey, man. Dr. Seamus said I should do this. No.
Yeah.
No. Just some dude named Seamus said.
Yeah. You don't want it to be that, you and I have this discussion and then somebody like has all the guilt and shame and then like, chokes on a deli donut.
Yeah.
Died,
no,
right?
Let's not do that.
No, I am just a guy. But obsession is a part of addiction, right? So it's chicken or egg. What comes first? Do you have an addictive personality that leads to the obsession, or do you have an obsessive personality that then builds the addiction? I don't know, but they go hand in hand.
I was really surprised at this when I was doing research for this. According to the internet, a bunch of different studies, only 14% of adults consider themselves to have a food addiction. I think that's way low. No offense. This is the key characteristics, and I know you're going to relate to some of these. So what is food addiction? Compulsive consumption. Individuals with food addiction struggling with a loss of control, often consuming large amounts of foods, even when they're not hungry. Reward system activation. Highly palatable foods rich in sugar, fat, and salt stimulate the reward system, releasing a feel-good chemical called dopamine. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
Craving, intolerance, negative consequences. Despite the negative consequences, they can't stop themselves. And withdrawal symptoms. Some people experience withdrawal symptoms when they're trying to give up certain foods. That sounds very familiar to addiction, and I know that there's a lot more people out there that are dealing with food addiction. And maybe this is something that needs to be a little bit more mainstream, because
absolutely,
we don't treat food addiction the same way we do alcohol. Absolutely not.
Absolutely. And this goes to 2 points I'm going to make. One is that 14% those are the people that admitted it, right? 14% admitted it. It's not like we have some formula where we're like, well, based on this number and this deduction, we can say, I don't know, roughly 14% of Americans have a food addiction. Bullshit. Bull. Those are just the 14% that we found out about that were willing to admit that they had a food addiction. Much like, near 80 million people in the United States, 80 million out of, what are we at? Almost 400 million now, a fifth, admit to having, a substance addiction, booze, drugs, what have you. 80 million, just 80 million. I mean, I know that's a lot of people, but are you telling me that only 80 million? No, I'm sorry. It's not even close to 80 million. It's at least double that.
Yeah.
And to the point of, you mentioned about like asking somebody about their shopping addiction, their food addiction, right?
Yeah.
Just point blank asking them that. And it's, before we hopped on, I was just starting to edit a podcast that I did with, I'm doing a podcast series with a group of neurologists, a doctor and some students from Imperial University in London. They're the Craving Clarity crew. And anyway, they are studying the brain and addiction and how impulses are activated by the addiction and what part of the brain functions in a certain way that makes you go through the process of ingesting whatever it is or completing the action that is going to feed the addiction. Real crazy heady, but it's fascinating. So one of the topics that we talked about was one of the people involved is like, I grew up in Tanzania. I was pretty much sheltered in my life. I didn't really experience anyone with addiction of any kind that I was aware of, especially like substance use. Right. And so some of my friends, I think maybe might have a problem. Right. Or I think I know one person that may be in recovery, but I'm afraid to ask them. I'm afraid to say anything. Like, am I going to be impolite? And I'm like, we got to stop that. We got to stop it. That's part of why I do the podcast the way that I do. That's why I became a sober coach. Is why I'm doing some of this other work, is because we got to change the way we talk about this stuff, the way that we handle it. Like it's not taboo that you're hooked on pepperoni pizzas. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. All right. You got hooked on pepperoni pizzas. Okay. And you're crazy and cranky when you don't have your pepperoni pizza. That is fine. There's nothing wrong with you, man. There is nothing wrong with you. You just can't eat pepperoni pizzas anymore. All right. I mean, you can, but you shouldn't. You shouldn't eat your pepperoni pizzas anymore. And that's fine. You're not defective. You're not a bad person. You're not a piece of loser because you can't have a pepperoni pizza. Right. I mean, that's a very gentle way of saying, like, when you are hooked on drugs or alcohol, people look at you a certain way, and they're like, I like to say, like, look at me. See this dude right here, this 50-year-old guy. Like, this is what addiction looks like. This is what recovery looks. I am an alcoholic, and this is what it looks like. It's not some guy living on a park bench. It's not some person shuffling through the streets with no shoes, dirty clothes, and a bottle of booze and a brown paper bag. No, it's not. And somebody that has a food addiction is not a contestant on The Biggest Loser or any other kind of weight loss show just for a bit of fame. That's an entirely different, thing to talk about. But my point being is that your neighbor has a food addiction, right? Your coworker is an alcoholic. Your uncle has a problem with gambling. Your niece cannot stop getting in these gnarly toxic relationships. My mom doom scrolls all the time because she's addicted to chaos and the sensation that she gets from it. It's all the same. It just has a different package. And the more we can talk about just addiction, not what we're addicted to, you're going to find that you got a lot more in common with other people than you don't. Like, alcohol and drugs were my downfall, right? I wouldn't call them a downfall. I did for a while. They saved my life in a weird roundabout way. Like, a lot of shit happened for me, and I'm here now, and it's great and it's awesome, and I'm taking advantage of it. But somebody who shelters themselves in at night and is shoveling spoonfuls and spoonfuls of rocky road, like, they are not a bad person, man. They are not. And the shame that goes along with our society's perception of addiction has really got to change, because addiction is not a bad thing. It's a natural thing, and it can really happen to just about anyone. So knock it off.
We can't stop ourselves.
We can't.
We can't. I mean, there's shame with, as I start dealing and helping out people who have type 2 diabetes, and they're like, oh my gosh, how did you reverse it and all that kind of stuff? I'm like, well, did you tell everyone? No. Yeah. Why would I tell everyone? I was like, well, then
yeah,
I can't help you.
I can't help you.
They're like, you told everyone? Day one. I started making phone calls as soon as I got type 2 diabetes. I was like, oh my gosh, I got type 2 diabetes. This is going to be part of my life for the rest of my life. I got to tell everyone, because I don't want it to be weird when I'm, going through everything I'm going through. I wasn't looking for sympathy. I was looking for accountability, and it was the people I trusted the most. But I told almost everyone, just like, hey, I'm a type 2 diabetic. They're like, how did that work? I'm like, I don't know. I'll let you know. They haven't figured it out yet, because I wasn't overweight.
They may not figure it out, but it happened. It happened. And it's who I am.
And it's made me a better person. It's made me healthier, all that kind of stuff. So and that's the way that I look at it, is, this has given me an opportunity to, given me permission to be healthy, permission to be a better person. And now, yeah, we're giving back a little bit with the podcast and stuff. And that's cool. And if it helps one person, awesome.
That's it, man.
That'd be great. I don't care. I'm not going to get famous doing this, but if it helps one person, it'd be awesome.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine a couple hours ago today over coffee. And, you know, I said that same thing. I'm like, well, because, you know, something like that happened for me. A friend of a friend, or a friend's friend, who was notifying a friend group that they were done. They were checking out. Too many things in their life had caused too much, and they felt that they couldn't handle it, and that they weren't able to help their family. So they were just going to get out of the way and check out. Wow. And my friend who got the message said, okay, all right, well, before you do that, why don't you listen to this podcast? And it was some episode of mine. And the guy responded back a few hours later. He's like, oh my God, thanks for sending that, man. I changed my mind. I'm not going to do it. And, you know, one of my sponsors was like, hey, save a life, save a world. Right. And I know now that through speaking out and doing what I'm doing, that if tomorrow was the last day on my way out, I would know that all of the that I went through, all of the putting myself out and being vulnerable in that way saved a dude's life. Not only that, his daughter's going to have a dad. His wife is going to continue to have a husband. Right. And I was a part of that. And like I said, man, I'm cool. So I knew that I did one. Well, let's try and do some more. So it's like, I'm not looking to get famous over this shit, but if I can talk the way that I talk and it helps people, right? Then we got to keep it up, because it's the shame that murders people. You know, it's not the substances. It's not the food. It's not the behaviors. It's the shame is what does it.
Yeah. So I'm weird, as you know, and I'm really good at quitting stuff. Yeah. And I get obsessed with the length between doing things. And I don't know I've never been to a therapist. I've never talked to anyone, because I think they might implode if they actually got in here. I think there's some bad stuff happening in my head. But at any rate, I love longevity. So like I quit drinking, it was actually 16 years ago this month. So we're recording this in March. It's been 16 years since I had to drink alcohol. Why did I quit drinking alcohol? Because I didn't want to drink anymore. Because I didn't like being hungover. I didn't like the food choices I made. My goodness, could I eat when I was drunk? Like, yes, dude, I mean, so I was like, okay, well, what's in my way? And there's a quote out there, what stands in the way is the way, right? So, and I didn't know that until recently, but I was like, okay, so I would go, if I don't want to do this, but if I do this, I'm still doing this. Okay, I'll just quit doing this, and then I'll probably quit doing this. And that's how I quit drinking. And a few years ago, like 4 years ago, I was like, I drink way too much pop. I'm sick of drinking pop. I haven't had a pop since, right? I quit smoking and started training for a marathon on the same day. So I'm really good at quitting stuff, and I love the longevity between doing things. You know, I'm a vegetarian, right. I'm a vegan. I've quit so many different things, but in the addiction world, you know, what is that? Like, why, what the hell? What's wrong with me? Or am I just really good at quitting stuff? Yeah.
You're really good at manipulating your mind is what it is.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. You know, like the one thing that I've learned from me, is that, ego plays a large part in my personality. And growing up, and for the majority of my life, I thought ego was cockiness. I thought ego was, you know, an inflated personality. And ego is not, that's part of it. It can be part of it. But your ego can make you do terrible things to yourself if you let it get in the way, right? And so that leads to addiction, right? That leads to crazy compulsive behaviors, right? Again, I'm not a therapist. Compulsive disorders, I don't know. I'm just saying behaviors that I have seen, that I have experienced, right? Much to like, you know, hey, I haven't had a beer, a drink in 16 years. And you're like, I got to change something now. It's been 16 years. What am I going to do now? Hey, I got to quit. Next? I got to drink a pop. Hey, now I'm going to quit smoking. Hey, now I'm going to do marathon.
Hey, I did try quitting coffee. That ain't happening. That was
no. That is an absolute non-starter. I will put myself in the grave before I give up coffee. Sorry, ain't happening, man. Ain't gonna happen.
That's a different podcast. Not
that's a
this
different
one.
podcast. Yeah. Don't take my coffee. I will kill you. Damn dirty apes. No, man. It is. Those really, it is behaviors like that I've learned about myself, and I find that I'm not a unicorn, really. That if you want, I'm essentially your garden variety drunk addict, right? I have exceptional stories. I don't know how I'm alive still. There have been many things, right, that have happened to me or that I caused to happen due to my addiction. But again, that doesn't make me special. And I've learned to accept that, basically how I'm wired, who I am is okay. And if I'm aware of impulses, if I'm aware of behaviors, if I'm aware of, hey, if I follow through with this, chances are the outcome might lead me to this other thing. So I'm going to choose not to do that. So that's the approach that I'm taking. You are like, I'm done.
Right? And hard stop.
And a lot of people believe that when like, for example, a big thing in recovery through alcohol or drugs is we like to talk about how much time we have, right? I'm proud to say I've got over 10 and a half years of sobriety, right?
Yeah.
And people wear that as a badge of honor. And that's the ego, right? Because if something were to occur and I were to pick up a drink tomorrow, right? And essentially I'd have to start my sobriety date all over again. It's not the end of the world, right? But there would be a part of me that's like, man, you just blew the past 10 years. And it's like, no, man, it's just part of the process, dude. Like,
yeah.
It just proves that you got to kind of maybe change some things that you're doing. And that might be removing yourself from certain circumstances. Sometimes, it's okay to remove yourself from relationships if it's going to like save your life.
And there's definitely a part where when I'm looking at goals and stuff like that, where I'm like, okay, this is who I want to be, not for anyone else.
Right.
I do like the longevity, and it is probably an ego thing, and I'm good at it. And I'm better than most people at quitting stuff. Good for me.
Yes,
well, I am. I'm not good at many things, but I am good at that.
You're good at quitting.
I'm good. I'm great at quitting. I wish I was just better at not starting. Anyway,
good point.
But I have a picture of who I want to be. And like for my diabetic journey, like I had no idea how hard it was to reverse diabetes. Thank goodness my doctors weren't really on board with me thinking I was going to reverse diabetes. And they'd have told me the statistics that only 6% of people actually reverse their type 2 diabetes. And after 5 years, only 1.6% of people are still reversed. Like, I'm like, what? That would have been intimidating. But I had a picture in my mind of who I wanted to be, not for anyone else, just for me. But a little bit of it is like, I want people to know me as a runner. I want people to know me as someone who is healthy. And, so there's a little bit, definitely some ego in there, but as soon as you can picture who you want to be, all your actions will lead to being that person. If you truly believe this is who I want to be. That's it. I just want to be this person. Okay, cool. Right. Everything you do will kind of lead you there. That's a little bit more law of attraction than I thought we'd get into, but that's my gig. So,
well, but
whatever.
Hey, yeah, it is your gig, but you know what? And it's mine too. I kind of borrow from a lot of different stuff, right? And I had that picture in my mind too. But one thing that I have learned is that it just fine. Have the picture of who you want to be, how you want to be remembered, whatever is important to you in that way, whatever feeds that part of your ego. And just allow and accept the journey to happen, because I can assure you, I would bet my kids' lives on this, that it is not going to be or look what you think it's going to look like at all. Not even close. But if you allow yourself to keep that vision in mind of who you want to be and just let it happen, it'll happen. But the crazy thing is that as I'm allowing myself to do that, I see myself becoming a bit of the version of the person that I wanted to be.
Good.
Which is awesome. Yeah, it's cool. But I had to allow myself to get there. Right. That was that's a whole podcast and therapy session. But anyway,
well, when you set the goal, you have to focus on the goal, because you don't get to set the journey. You only get to set the goal. You don't get to plan the journey because it's not up to you.
Yeah. And when you start achieving being that person, what's wild is that's only a part of who you are. It's not the whole picture, right? And the whole picture is mind-blowing if you just let it happen. You're like, holy shit, I became that person plus all of this, right?
Now what?
Now
that's my problem.
Now what? And that's where I come in. Well, I'm sober. Now what? Right. Yeah. Well, hold on, people.
People
it's about to get real.
People say to me, are you going to quit breathing at some point? I'm like, only if it's good for me. One of the things that I found out really quick, a big difference between alcohol, drug addiction, and diabetes and food addiction and things like that is there's no support groups here for diabetes. Yeah. Like there's seriously, you've been to my town, there's a couple 100,000 people here. It's a real town. We got Walmarts and all that kind of stuff.
And there's a huge university.
Yeah. And there's no support group. So I looked out, there's a diabetes walk like an hour away, I guess. I don't know if I get much out of that, but and that's cool if you want to do that. But I'm like, what can we learn? Like, what is for you, like what was important to getting with your recovery? Because you didn't just do it on your own. You had a group of people that were helping you also.
Absolutely.
So for diabetics that are listening and you feel like you're the only person, one, you're not alone because there's 90,000 or 90 million, diabetics in America or whatever it is. But where do you get that support? I mean, that's something we need to work on, but for alcohol and drugs, where's the first step for them? And then we need to follow that path with diabetes.
Absolutely. So, I mean, look, there are many, many different ways to get sober. I got sober in AA, right? And so that's my experience. That said, I've learned about a lot of different other ways that people can get sober. And I utilize some of that to maintain my sobriety, to maintain my recovery, to grow my recovery. When I got sober, my kids were real little and my wife was pissed, and with good reason, right? And the thing that's preached pretty heavily in recovery is like you got to take care of yourself first. It's much like the analogy from the airline, like put your oxygen mask on first and then help your child or the person next to you, because if you pass out, that's it, you're no good. So you got to take care of yourself first, so you then therefore can take care of everybody else. Well, that is a tough place to get to for some partners or spouses or what have you, right? So what I did on the suggestion of a friend of mine, my sponsor, was like, we'll just start a meeting at your house. And I did that. And I did that like nearly 10 years ago. And it went from me sitting up there by myself some nights to I've got about 25 people that show up in my house. Now I started a men's group because I just needed to make some new friends. And I created a safe space where we could talk about our addiction, but other things too, right? It was like trying to be a more sensitive man. But
not wrong with that.
Oh man, exploring all aspects of being male. That was a guy that had a group out in Portland.
Okay,
like,
yeah, that sounds
join
like
us,
Portland.
And, we will explore all aspects of being male, and essentially that's what I'm doing. But whatever. He was onto something. But what I'm getting at is that okay, we get it. Like you don't have a support system, and it's hard to find that support system. But it's not impossible for you to start it. You can be the person that starts it. And the thing that has benefited recovery of any kind is that during COVID, we had to figure out how to communicate together. And thank God we had the technology, Zoom or what have you, any kind of video service that you can use, right? I use Zoom, okay? Not getting paid by Zoom, even though you can write me a check. It's fine. But I use Zoom.
Send it to Chad at soberchad.com.
There you go. P.O. Box 6065, Evanston, Illinois 60202. It's S-O-N, not S-E-N. Johnson.
Gotcha.
Anyway, right. But what I'm getting at is that it's much easier now to put yourself out there in a way that still you feel a bit protected from, because people have gotten used to searching through digitally for support groups. You don't have to go to be in person. I think that in order for someone to really like enhance and advance your sobriety or whatever sobriety, right? Whatever it is, that being in being in person, because there's that whole magical kind of like energy connection that you get when you're in the same space as somebody. But if that's not available to you, you still can find them and you can create it and you can put it out there. And I will guarantee you, people that are already in support groups, diabetic support groups, are bored out of their minds listening to Edward tell the same damn story about how he ate the cake. Right? Very relatable. And we're listening and we're helping Edward, but I want to jump off a building, Ed. So if you put it out there, people will come. They will come. And if you start the group, you're able to say, hey, look, this is a support group. This is what I am looking for. This is what I need. And if you're interested, come on, join me and we'll help each other. You get to kind of control a little bit about who comes in. Right. It's okay to set that boundary. Right. That's another thing about recovery is the boundaries that you got to set with yourself and with others and with the world. Right. And so if it's a support group, you can say, I need, these 5 things in order to stay sober and to keep moving forward and feeling better. If that is relatable to you, then let's do it. And really all you need is one other person. Right. And then it can if you get 5 people, if there's 6 of you, oh my God, your world will improve dramatically. So find them. Any digital platform, throw it out there. I'm a diabetic. I need to talk to people. Help.
There are some good Facebook groups. I did finally join some Facebook groups, but if there would have been something in person, I would have absolutely done it. And if you're in a town where there is, you should definitely look into it because it can help a ton.
Man, it takes it. It's corny, but it takes a village, man. It really does. You're not going to maintain it on your own, right? You're just not. Unless you're Seamus and you're some kind
I'm a weirdo. Don't be me. Jeez. Please.
Please there's only room for one of you.
I am a complete moron and I was able to reverse my diabetes. That should be enough motivation for you to go reverse your diabetes because and I didn't know nothing. Neither did my doctors, really. I taught them a few things. All right. So we have definitely established that alcohol and drug addiction is very similar to food addiction, which leads to obesity. And, 80 to 90% of type 2 diabetics are overweight or obese. So get the help and it's okay. Get rid of the shame. If you want to check out Chad, soberchad.com. His podcast is called Not All There. I appreciate you spending the time with me today, bud. That was fun.
Thank you, man. I loved it. Thank you, man.